Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creator's Journey. This is where I take a little bit of a personal journey to things that are happening at the moment, which is ultimately on my journey as a creative. And today I want to talk about passion and price and navigating the balance between the two, because it can be very difficult in creative industry to really get involved passionately into projects when there's prices involved, because with price comes expectations and other ideas from clients and other people as well. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because that's what I've been thinking about a lot this last week. As you can see, I'm in a different space. I'm actually in Sydney, in a podcast studio and part of a co-working space, which I've joined, which has been really cool. We've actually checked out a few of them today. We found that this was the nicest looking studio, so that's why I'm recording this afternoon. But pricing and passion, as we've been discussing more business ideas this week, we really talk about, it comes down to what we are delivering and the price. And when we're looking at it from this perspective, it really comes down to efficiency. What can we do efficient enough that we're willing to engage in and being able to get the job done in those deliverables, which is ultimately going to help the client. And this is quite a bit different from where I started making videos. When I started making videos, it actually came from creating fun videos of my trips when I was in the US. That's primarily where I got to do it on a bit more of a cinematic level and sort of put together these longer travel style videos. And I love that. I still to this day love that. When I was in Vietnam last year, I filmed a whole bunch of stuff, and I still have so many edits that I'd like to get to. And even right now, that's sort of why I feel like I'm being torn, is I feel like I'm having to make a decision between passion and price. All this business stuff that we're working on with podcast packages and content creation, it's sort of like, I do love it. I mean, I love having my own podcast. It's a perfect platform for me to express myself. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's just the complications, for me at least, come in when dealing with a client, because they have certain expectations, and it's tricky to cater everything that we want to offer to often a budget that they have. It's difficult to find a client, I suppose, who one that's sort of on our end too, is being able to communicate all the work that we can do and why it is actually valued at what it's worth. And it's different again from the freelance work where, you'd show up, do a corporate interview. That may not be the most fun, but it's a pretty easy transaction. I show up for X amount of hours, you pay me this, or this day rate for this amount, and that sort of is all-inclusive thing. But when we're talking about the nitty-gritty things, it sort of changes the dynamic. And that is kind of, it's maybe not what I really like to do. I've definitely discovered this week, talking to a few more clients, doing some business development with my business part, we've sort of, I've definitely realized that I really like to be hands-on in the work. For example, this podcast, I'm in a new space, so I've had to set up all of this from scratch, and it took me, I think, about 45 minutes to set it up. I've got, the room for another 5 minutes or so, and I booked it for a whole hour, and that doesn't seem to be an efficient use of time. Why wouldn't you just set it up real quick, get the job done, and bang, off the episode goes? I think it's a great point, because what is actually important here is the visual component of this important. Is the audio component more important? Is what I'm actually saying the most important part? Or is it all of it? And I think I really enjoy being able to visually make things look pleasing. I love to be able to communicate my ideas appropriately with good sounding audio. But I could have just done it really quick, and having that expectation to release an episode every week, it's something that has to get done. It's the same thing when it comes back to clients. It's an obligation a contract that you're in, and it sort of sometimes can, I think oftentimes will take from the creative to some sort of degree. Now, the advantages of working with clients, obviously you can get money. You can actually get funded to be able to do creative stuff, which is, I mean, if you can sustain a living off a creative, that's exactly what we're doing. Creative input, you can get some input from, the client and other maybe people you're collaborating on the project with. And that leads to bigger projects. You might be even working with a crew. So all those are sort of great things that you can get from working with a client. But when it comes to your own videos, you may be not making any money. And that's the struggle right now. And I think that's why I'm looking more into the business side of things, is because I would like to make some more money. I think up until this point, probably at least 85% of all the videos, content that I've made has been unpaid and has been out of passion. And the reason for that is I do believe that in the long run it will pay off. If I keep building my skills, I believe that is ultimately the most important thing, to creating a valuable asset that people are willing to pay for. But that said, there's also a business component to things too. If I'm useless at selling myself, if I cannot communicate that I can do certain things, there's no way I'm going to get hired for jobs or sign on clients for retainer packages. And I guess the bad things about working with a client would be, you have expectations, deadlines, and there's lots of communication that needs to be set up front as well as through the editing process, doing revised edits and all that sort of thing. But I love working on my own videos, having that creative freedom, the flexibility, and just the ability to work overtime on things too. Is just, instead of being like, well, they've only budgeted this amount, we're going to do this amount of work, because realistically, if I spend more time on this, it's only going to get, incrementally better, diminishing returns at a certain point, and they just simply haven't had the budget for it. But when you're on your own projects, you can spend however long you want. If you get passionate about making things as perfect as possible, ultimately you will have that video that will be set in stone for the rest of eternity, really, if you want to get really deep into it. I think that's kind of a special thing, and that's where the fueled by passion comes from. And it becomes more than just trading your skills for a certain outcome at that point. It's really creating something purposeful and meaningful, both potentially for myself, the creator, but for other people too. I think I'm really just trying to say that I'm trying to find potentially a balance between the two, or even, I don't know if there is a world where you can just have complete creative freedom with like no obligations attached. I don't think that's, as far as I can tell, I don't think that quite exists. But there's definitely worlds where, people make ridiculous amounts of money on YouTube these days, and I would love to be able to make some sort of income from that. And I'm not even focusing on that at the moment, because that's very much a long game. And the reality is I'm going to the US in a couple of weeks, and I need money now, pretty much. So that really has to fast track that whole process of actually earning some money now, so I can do some of those more passion things while I'm over there and create vlogs of all my, plans and things that I'm doing over there. I'm not going to tease too much about that, because I'm still working out how it's all going to work, but I think it's going to be a great time in the US. So I'm just trying to really blend the two. And I think some ways that I found that you can do that is just taking on good projects. You don't necessarily have to say yes to any client. And I think it's often good when you understand straight away that this isn't the type of work that you're good at or that you like to do, unless you're really desperate for finding clients or to get some money. It is a really good idea to let those pass. There'll be other opportunities that pop up, and by cutting those away, it just allows you to focus more on finding the better clients and the better work. I think having also another good tip for blending the two, so I'm trying to find this balance of having a certain amount of consistent work, maybe some sort of monthly or weekly work that allows you, maybe giving up 2 days a week of work, but then you get the other 5 days. I can't count apparently. 5 days of work to to work on whatever creative projects you want. I think that seems to be some sort of good model because it allows you to really knuckle down and just get the work done, even if it is a bit of a grind. It's only a certain amount of time, and then the rest of the time you can potentially be working on whatever else you want as well. So I'm very much still trying to find that balance. But it is, I think just even right now, the situation that I'm in, all the conversations I've had with clients, with my business partner over the last even week, I think it's been very valuable. And just the whole game of trying to create a life where you're creating as a career, I think, well, there's so many C's in that, but creating a career of creating, I think, is an amazing process. And it's, there's so much that goes into it. It's tough, but it's great. I honestly can't see myself doing anything else in the current moment. So I'm just learning a lot from it. And I think it really comes down as to what do you really like about the creative process. And I think I am very much hands-on in the creative, even though I've been trying to maybe convince myself, it'd be great to start to manage some people and go into more sales and stuff, which I definitely will do, and that's all skills that ultimately will benefit me anyway. But I think I really understand that I love just being invested in the creative process, and the best way that I've found where I'm just in my creative flow is when I'm traveling, experiencing new things, because then I'm genuinely excited to share the things that are happening around me. And that's probably a reason too why I haven't been making YouTube videos this year, because I don't find it exciting, like the lifestyle that I have at the moment. It is very much just sit in front of the computer, edit away, or that's honestly taking up 90% of my time at the moment. So, and that's why I want to make traveling a bit more of a common thing in my life. And because it's been a whole year since I've actually been to Vietnam, and I was hoping there would be, maybe a month or two break in between traveling, but I guess it's come down to I haven't had enough money to really fund it, which isn't really an excuse, because there's definitely ways that you can travel on a budget, and maybe that would even be a cool series in itself. So there's not really any excuses for it. You can create with little to no budget. But I think I've discovered that I very much like the creative part of everything, and actually being hands-on, doing the filming. The editing is good. I think I probably spend a bit too much time just doing some of the repetitive stuff, but it's all part of the process. I like being really stuck into that. So the trying to blend the price and the passion can be a difficult thing. But I guess you just have to work out what you want. You can definitely use creative skills to make tons of money if that's your goal. And vice versa, you can use your skills to create amazing, passionate projects that really fulfill you and keep you happy. So that's it for this week. Again, tuning in from Sydney. I hope to catch you in the next one. Thanks for listening.